Has turned out to be the worst year for residential real estate all the way back since 2010, and the industry says a lot of the blame for this lies with the government's demonetization drive. To discuss this, we're now joined by Gulam Zia, the executive director of Knight Frank, which has come out with some statistics. Gulam, hi, thank you very much for joining in. First, about the total residential market, the top 8 cities. Sales volumes down 44%, new launches down 61% for the October to December period. Have things recovered at all?
Not really. The dust is yet to settle while the 50-day period for demonetization, first phase collection of old currencies is over. But then even after that, we still don't see much of clarity, because on one side, the home loan thing is the biggest factor which will bring the buyers back in the market and get some sense to the developers to decide whether they should launch their new inventories, etc. But to answer your question crisply, no, the clarity still is not there.
Gulam, good morning. Prashant here. Which markets were affected the most and which were resilient?
Well, demonetization was perhaps just the last nail in the coffin. But prior to that, a lot of things were going wrong with the real estate. Last 3 consecutive years were really bad as far as the pickup and demand and purchases were concerned. And then came this demonetization thing. And that kind of, completed the whole picture. And post that, pretty much every market has gone through a tough time, barring 1 or 2 markets where the impact of this was lesser than the rest, but not a single market was, insulated from the shocks of demonetization. Few markets where the impact was far higher was markets which are actually doing bad even before demonetization, like the NCR market. The Delhi capital region market was something which is actually passing through a really serious problem for last at least a year and a half, where even in locations like Gurgaon, etc., the price correction, the circle rate correction to the effect of 20% had also happened. So overall, NCR of the rest is the worst affected market in last couple of days. The other markets were even Mumbai, where the high-end, the luxury products were very badly affected. The lower end of the market was slightly better off because the impact of demonetization was lesser over there.
Okay. Gulam, just taking that point forward about low-cost housing, do you think that that would possibly see the fastest recovery, because it's never really had a problem in terms of issues such as black money, which we've generally seen for the upper end of a luxury housing?
Well, it's actually a debatable topic. Which sector of the society had more of black money issue? But then not getting into that, yes, the point is that with not just affordable housing really taking the center stage, but the year-ender from the Prime Minister also gave lots of cues of the benefits and a lot of discounts or special, what should I say, the special clauses created for the lower end of the market, where the cheaper home loans will be made available to them, etc., etc. These things will have a huge impact on affordable housing to start with, and that is, as you rightly said, will be the first sector to bounce back after this whole thing.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So, fair enough. The affordable segment would be the fastest to bounce back. Gulam, so, when results, we're in the results season now. Third quarter earnings from, listed real estate companies should be terrible this quarter, you'd say?
Yes, in fact, you may want to use a better word than terrible, because to us, at least for those 40-50 days, the whole real estate industry had come to a grinding halt. So I'm sure it will reflect on listed or unlisted companies alike, and that will obviously reflect on the performances of all these companies, but also connecting the previous point that we're talking about, the affordable housing bouncing back, even that may not be so much of a reprieve for the listed companies, because hardly any listed company is actually operating in the affordable housing sector. Very few interest, very little, would I say, involvement in affordable housing from any of these listed
Just one last question. People who are sort of financing the sector, I spoke with Mr. Ajay Piramal, chairman of Piramal Group. They have a 19,000 crore real estate financing book, 50% of which is in the construction finance space. He said they only deal with tier 1 players. So they don't see much of an impact. What would you say to that? And generally, I mean, the after effects on the financing side, yes.
Well, whatever said and done, the impact of demonetization will also be time bound. We are not expecting this to last over next years altogether, because as we believe it will not last more than a quarter or so going forward. And after that, things will get back to normalcy. In any case, a lot of places we do see buyers actually signing the dotted lines who are actually sitting on the fringe all this while, for the clarity to emerge, for some haze to settle down that was actually on the real estate sector for so long. So a lot of that has already started happening. And then the point that if the investments have been more in tier 1 developers, good developers, established ones, even obviously they were also affected hugely, but then the impact will wane off, the impact of demonetization will slowly reduce, and hopefully by the second quarter of the calendar year, we will start seeing some impact, some consumers coming back to the market, and hence the investments making some good results.
Gulam, thanks very much for your time. Good speaking with you. Appreciate you coming on with that perspective on the real estate space.